So look, we're pretty excited to be sharing with you today a bit of an update on nProve. You heard the single step talk this morning. We're pretty keen to make sure that the fruits of their efforts are put directly into your hands and you're able to make best use of that information. So this is about nProve, that tool, which in time will replace the current SIL systems. So in today's session, we'll kick off with a little bit of background in terms of how this project came about, talk a little bit about the name and the thinking behind that and our software strategy. We'll give you an overview of the workshops, how we've been running those and how those have been working out. We'll look at some of the development that's fresh out of the oven from the Rosea development team and look briefly at what we're working on to come up next. We'll look at the role of the bureaus in nProve and how we see that being quite important moving forward. We'll look at the overall timing of the project and then finally some information there if you'd like to get involved. So a little bit of background on the project. So this is, this big statement here is really our business objective at BLG, and that's really around enabling that confident and profitable sheep and beef industry. In terms of how we go about it, that's our purpose there, and that really is about getting that information and infrastructure into the hands of sheep and beef industry to enable those profitable breeding choices. And there's a few questions for us, also as we sort of think about some of those topics that Andrew was talking about around, which of those are really our responsibility versus those where it makes more sense for us to work with others to deliver those, but without shirking our responsibilities. In terms of the funding, so we've got funding mainly through farmer levies that we receive through our beef and lamb ownership. We also receive funding through yourselves in terms of your SIL fees, and then we have other funding that comes in from other third parties, and in this project is expected to include RNPP funding as well. So about this time last year, we thought we'd better check in terms of how we were delivering on these objectives. We sent out a survey to you. We got almost 400 responses, which was fantastic. Thanks very much to everybody that took the time to do that. We had some sort of baseline questions around us as an organisation, our mission, whether you agreed with that mission and your opinions on how we were doing in terms of executing on that. And those were some pretty positive responses, which was great to see. But we'd been hearing feedback around the usability issues for our tools, and we were of the opinion that it was time to do something about it. But we needed to make sure that we were being pretty objective about that and not just listening to a vocal minority. So we included some questions in there around those tools. In the top left there, you can see where we asked, were you aware of our online tools and apps? And you can see here, 79% of you responded that you did. Well, but when we asked if you were using them, the vast majority, you probably can't read that, and neither can I, 56%, I think. Sorry, the majority were not using them. And then, in terms of why, we get to the obvious question, and we get this squiggly line here. The midpoint in terms of rating of those tools out of 10 is here, and you can see the vast majority of the responses from you were to the left-hand side of the line, suggesting that those tools were not particularly usable, which, as I said, wasn't a surprise, but gave us a pretty clear mandate for change. I guess another thing to keep in mind is, since the SIL tools were put together, the world's moved on quite a bit. Those tools have served us well, but there's an obvious expectation around being able to get more direct access to information and things being a lot better, different systems being a lot better connected. But that last point there is also one we're hearing loud and clear from breeders, which is that not everyone's able, there's not connectivity everywhere. And there's also breeders that have made a business decision that investing time in these tools and technologies is not good use of their time, and they choose to outsource that. And we want to, we understand that, and I'll show you some information in a moment in terms of making sure that we preserve those services as well. But I think, it's pretty obvious that there's time for change. We want to manage that change. We don't want it to be destructive change. We want to manage it and bring everybody with us, and all the while keeping an eye on the integrity of the evaluation while we do it. So before we get into the nProve project itself, just a little bit about the name, where it came from. So this was the outcome of an incredible job. It was Becky, Bridget and Nick at Workshop D, and we also had Trevor Harvey on the case for us, working up the core concepts. We needed a name for this platform that we needed to develop to replace some of the aging systems. We didn't want to have all the different, like we've got SIL, Flock Finder, Ram Finder, Breed Finder, Silent, the J client. We really did just want a simple, succinct name. When you went there, that would be the one thing that you would search up and get what you needed. We didn't want any bias in there when it came to traditional recording or genomics, so nothing that sort of suggested we were leaning one way or the other on that. And obviously, with any name, something memorable and that was going to work on a website or in a search. It was also important that it works across species. I think most of you will be aware that our infrastructure is leveraged by more than sheep. We've got deer in there as well, which is an obvious win-win in terms of us being able to spread the cost of the infrastructure across a wider number of species. So the concept that they came up with, again, I think everyone's seen this from the good asset and things that went out, was nProve. It's a bit of a play on words, obviously, around improvement. The N has some significance when we are talking about mathematics and a number of things. The symbol to the right, there's a bit more debate on that. A lot of people see it as an arrow pointing forward. The more mathematically inclined tend to see it as a greater than sign. We're okay with any of those interpretations. It was the right imagery that we were aiming for. Our marketing team also came back with the recommendation that wherever possible, like when we are using the logo in a large display area, it would be a good idea to show a picture of a real animal. Please don't get hung up on this real animal. It's just a photoshopped placeholder for us at the moment. But the idea basically is that, look, nProve, that's really about us putting in your hands the information behind the animal standing in front of you, staring back at you. But there's still a physical animal standing there that needs to be, its physical structure should be assessed. The role of the breeder being the expert to provide that assessment. And also, the consultancy with the purchaser as well. So just a wee sort of subtle hint in there. In terms of the nProve name, so today, and how it applies to our systems, today we've got the current SIL systems. So, we've got Beef and Lamb, who owns BLG, running SIL. Underneath SIL, we've got NZGE and the different finder apps, and then the other evaluations under that. As we build up the new nProve systems, we intend to do those alongside the current SIL systems while keeping the SIL systems up and running alongside. Once we reach the point where the SIL system's functionality is at the level that we're looking for and is providing the right level of service, it's at that time that we'll move to retire the SIL systems, and we'll just be left with the nProve systems moving forward. And we're aiming for this to be around mid-2019. So those two brands, those two names, will coexist for a period of time. And it's pretty important too, just to keep the confusion down, for the teams involved, so we know whether we're talking about the new stuff or the old stuff. So that's a bit about the name and where that came from. And now let's look at the current tools that we've got and how those will change as we bring nProve in. So if we were to pull the curtain back in the back room, we've got our databases that hold the information, the servers that chew on that information. There's the SIL website, there's the different finder tools, there's the Finder mobile app, and that's actually two. So we need to maintain an Android version and an Apple version. And then we've got the SIL system as well. So that's quite a large number of things for us to maintain, and it's quite a large number of different things for you to use. So there's challenges for us around cost of ownership. Some of the technology is starting to get pretty old in the tooth and difficult to support. And also, sometimes we have to implement the same things across these things multiple times, which is not that efficient and can lead to inconsistencies. So in terms of our strategy, the first thing to do was to update the SIL website. I think most of you will have seen that, and that was very positively received. But then when it comes to these tools that are left over, the aim really was to consolidate those into a single system, which unsurprisingly is nProve. But just if I take that off for a second, and we'll look at that in a couple of slides, there's a pretty wide range of functionality that these current systems provide, and to a very diverse audience range, from the expert user that's using those systems day in, day out, potentially to someone like a commercial farmer that might be using it just at certain times of the year. So for the project, in terms of its high-level objectives, they really tie back to that first slide, which was BLG's purpose. And to do that, the key thing we believe we need to do is to empower everyone involved, breeders, commercial farmers, and those that are supporting industry. And to Andrew's points from earlier, and we'll dig into this in more detail tomorrow, but all the while being respectful and clear around data ownership, and we're looking forward to talking more about that then. In terms of the audience that we're serving, like we're saying before, a really diverse range of types of people that are going to be using it, and levels of expertise that we need to be able to cater to. And also when it comes to the types of devices everybody's using. Everyone expects to be able to sit in the lounge with their laptop, or in the office on their desktop, and that to work, but more and more people are pulling out their mobile phone and want to see something that works there as well. So we are aiming to deliver something that's going to work across all those different types of device. It's also got to be fast and easy to use. And then three things here that are probably more for us at BLG, but we want to make sure that it's a reasonable cost to develop, and the ongoing cost is reasonable. We want a single system. We don't want to have to maintain lots of different things. We just want one, and something that's supportable moving forward that we can add on to and evolve over time. In terms of the functionality that nProve system needs to have, it's really around those things that were under the nProve box before that we're replacing. So it's got to give you that online interactive access to your information. You'll see there a note around limited offline functionality. We know there's not bandwidth everywhere, and so we're working with the development team at the moment just to work out how much information we can make available when you're outside of coverage, and how that would work within nProve. There's the data entry that Jade does that we need to take care of, and the data validation that it does as well to make sure we look after the integrity of the NZG evaluation. We also want to work with other systems as well. So you can see the point 4 there is around, how do we, which systems can we work with, and how can that be achieved. And then the last point, probably really shouldn't be point number 5, but it's there just to reassure everyone that we understand there's still a need to actually put this stuff on a physical piece of paper that you can take out on farm and write on, and we'll make sure that capability is always there. So hopefully that sort of sets the scene for the project, gives you a pretty good idea of what we want to achieve. But it's a pretty ambitious project, and we'll be pretty tempted to, even though we're surrounded with lots of experts and clever people, to wander off and build something up. But we know that if we do that, when we go to deliver it, we'll miss the mark. So rather, before we built anything, we reached out, sent out an invitation to all seal breeders, asking for you to be involved in workshops. We got a really positive response to that, so thanks very much to everyone that's been involved. If that sounds like something you're interested in, come and see us as well. We can definitely add you onto those lists. In the workshops, we send out a link that enabled you to join online. We'd arrange them at times that work for people, typically with under half a dozen, up to half a dozen people on the calls. You know, you can see each other, you can see any of the content that we're presenting. We got a really good range of people turning up. It's really important to us that we, you know, when you're developing a new technology, you'll tend to attract those people that are leaning in that direction. One of the biggest challenges with nProve is how do we put this in the hands of the rest of industry. And so it was great, some of the people that we had at those workshops, and also, you know, not afraid to call out the things that definitely weren't going to work in quite blunt terms, and it was you know, really valuable. I'll apologise right now. I am not an artist, and that's probably laid pretty bare with what you're seeing right now. But in those workshops, in the early ones, we would sort of throw out some broad topics, get some early feedback before we said too much to make sure that we listened first, but also a chance for those fresh ideas. And then we would sort of develop them up and sketch them during the call. And like I said, you know, through the computer, you could actually see the workshop participants could see what was going on there. And then we would pretty much leave the industry alone, and we would go back and work with the development team at Rosier. And basically what we would do is come up with the different ideas that we think would make the most sense, and then we would refine those into some mocks. And this was really our chance to come back to the follow-up workshop and say, right, well, based on everything that you've said, here are some ideas that we think make some sense. And again, you know, really important and valuable for us. Very quick feedback in terms of when we were on the right track and when we were not. These are designed to really look and smell and behave like the real thing. So what you're going to see here in a second is not real. It's been created as a mock to share on the workshops and give you an idea of exactly what this thing might look like and what it might be like to use. And that often spurs a lot of discussion in those workshops as well, gives people other ideas. And because it's just a mock, we actually haven't built anything yet. It's quite easy and cost effective to make changes at this point. You'll also notice that there's a mobile version on the right and a desktop version on the left. So one of the key things in this project was to make sure it was going to work well on both devices, but you know, make use of the additional screen space that we've got on a desktop or a laptop. So what you're looking at here is a view. It's one of the key screens in nProve. It's basically a place where you can come in and control, I want to see these columns of information. I only want to see, if we're looking at animals where, you know, maybe the sex is whatever values you're looking for, or maybe you're going to choose an index where you want values between certain ranges. I'll play the mobile version, where you can see they're going into a selection list. They're going to pull out that wee green tab in a minute on the left, which is where you can control the criteria, you know, what animals you want to see, and then that'll get slid away, and you'll see them adding some additional columns. So there was more information that you wanted to add, so you could go in, pick what information or what additional columns you wanted to see, and just be able to go and add those and then quickly see those results. So, you know, that after we've done the mocking process, then again we leave everyone alone, and that's really when the development work can begin. And so what I want to show you is some of the first of those screens that have pretty fresh out of the oven. This is those screens you were looking at before. they're going into a view, they're going to add a criteria to limit down what information they want to see. You can see here that's being done on the New Zealand terminal worth, moving a slider to limit the number of animals. And you can see the same thing happening on the mobile screen on the right, and then adding some additional columns. I think in this example it was a sub-index that was added just as an example, but you could add any breeding values or animal information or whatever it is, but it's just about really literally putting that in your own hands. So like I said though, this is the fruits of the development team's hard work, but it is fresh out of the oven, so it's straight into testing. We were hoping to have had some access to some of these screens in the workshop participants' hands, but it took a little bit longer for us to get to that base point than originally thought. But we're really excited with those first screens, how closely they line up with what came out of the workshops. The testing's in progress at the moment. We will send an invite out to those that have been on the workshops to give you access to have a bit of a play using your own flocks soon. It is running on our test servers, so they're older, slower servers, and the data on the servers are a bit older as well. It's about, I think the evaluation's about a year old. But we're working hard at the moment to get that loaded up onto the production systems to give you access to more up-to-date data. But it's also just limited to a single flock for those reasons at the moment. In terms of what the development team are working on right now back at Rosier, so we're adding the finishing touches to that screen. So making sure that you can sort, click the column headings to control the sort order, remove or reorder the columns. There's additional types of information we want to give you access to that aren't in there yet. Once you've set that view up with all the information you want, we want to make sure you can go in and save it so that you can easily come in later on and just open it up and see your information again. And finally, that you can export that data out. And again, to Andrew's point around the data formats, we do want to make sure, everyone needs CSVs, but those, I think many of you have had the experience of opening a CSV file in Excel and interpreting your tags as dates and all those other horrible things that can happen. So we are going to try and make sure that you can actually export the data out natively as an Excel file to avoid problems like that. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea of the types of thing nProve will do. The first bits that we've worked on is really about giving you access to your information. So the next topic we wanted to talk about, is the role of the bureaus. To sum it up from our side, it's really about retaining capability. There's a huge amount of institutional knowledge in the bureaus, and it's essential for industry that we bring that forward with us. Like we were talking about earlier on, we know that not everybody is able to use these tools or will choose to use those tools, and we have no intention of interfering with them being able to use a full service option through their bureau. But even for people that want to use these tools, there's still a need for training, the problem solving that occurs in the bureau layer. We need to retain that capability. And obviously, that plays a big part in the integrity of the evaluation. But, as we've been working through nProve as well, there's some pretty obvious places where we can also, provide new opportunities for the bureaus to be able to provide additional services to you, and including in some of the screens that we've looked at here. So we'll be continuing to work through that with bureaus as well. In terms of the timing, look, really high level. We completed some proof of concept work late last year. That was really to make sure that we could go out there, build a single system that was going to run across all those different types of devices and test the base technology. Then we've completed the initial round of workshops, and we're now into the analytics part, giving you access to your information. After that, we'll start looking at the data entry side of things, the things that the Jade software does today, and how we can bundle that into nProve before looking at that broader question around the other systems and how we best work with those, and finally just making sure that we provide that opportunity for things to be put on a physical piece of paper and reported. If you'd like to get involved, we're grateful for all the input that we've had on the workshops, and there's an open invitation for anyone to get involved in any of those. Please don't be put off if you don't have a good relationship with your computer or your technology. In a way, those are probably the most valuable people for us to get. So please come and see us, and we'll gratefully add you in. If you'd like to have a play, there's Saley and James from the nProve team. We're out in the hall over there, and we've got some iPads with that early screen you saw where you can actually get your hands on it. And don't hold back, same as in the workshops. If you've got thoughts, why did you do this? Could we do that? This doesn't make much sense. Don't hold back. Definitely share your feedback with us. Just before I wrap up, there's a few acknowledgements with any project of this scale. A lot of people have pulled together to make this happen. First and foremost, like I said before, everyone that's turned up at the workshops. It's been great humour, a bit of banter between you all on the line, but also real honest, candid feedback, which has been really incredibly valuable for us. The subject matter experts at BLG, huge thanks to Annie and Sharon, but also the support of our management team and our board. At Ag Research, we've got Cheryl Ann and Neville, the powerhouse behind SIL, and who have stepped in to help in this project as well, and we're incredibly grateful. And also the crew at Rosier. We're grateful to be working with people that understand our industry and our systems. And just maybe one quick mention, there's some people on that list, and I'll pick John's name out. He's not here, so I can say what I want. Who has, a lot of these guys have got the challenge of developing this new stuff that we're talking about here today. But the reality is we've got to build all these new technologies around the current systems that we've got to keep moving. And there's an analogy of trying to change wheels on a car while it's moving down the road. It's not this hectic, but there is that component to it as well. There is a bit of a superhuman effort that goes into that. So we're incredibly grateful. So thanks for your time. I think we've got a few minutes left if there are any questions.
David, is RamFinder going to be upgraded and made better?
So RamFinder, the plan definitely is to take a fresh blank piece of paper, look at RamFinder. It's quite an intimidating tool, and we've heard that loud and clear. We do have some ideas that we're pretty eager to share in the workshops that to be honest, have been fed in from industry. And yeah, we think there's that could be made a lot more accessible, a lot more user-friendly. Yep.
Will all current SIL recorded animals be on the new RamFinder, unlike the current system where there's often animals missing off the list, off RamFinder?
Yeah, great question. So probably the best place to cover that is in tomorrow's session. We'll have a session on data access, and we'll pop up on there information about what access information you have of your own versus what information should be provided to industry, and that might be a good place to cover that one off.
It is, okay. I was just going to give you some feedback on the nProve app that I had a quick squiz at this morning. I did need a little bit of help with the navigation, but that's because I was trying to use it like a bull at a gate without really thinking it through. But the flexibility is going to be amazing. Like you used the example of terminal worth. So you'll be able to look at your data, which is straight from the new database. So it's the most recent data that you have. You can get a list of the live animals, say for example the 2017 born rams. If you're confident you've already gone through them and culled them for physical faults, but you still need to cull some more, you'll be able to say, right, I want everything with a terminal worth over 500, for example, and also everything with a meat index over 200. And it'll tell you straight away how many there are in that category. And so you might think, oh, no, I can't cull that many, so I'll just lower the threshold for the meat index, or raise the threshold for the meat index, whichever way it is. And you'll have a list right there and then. You'll be able to export that, send it to your bureau, and say, cull everything in this age group that's not on the list. Easy peasy. You can do it now with a bit of help with your bureau, but this is right there at your fingertips. It's going to be so good. So, well done.
Thanks, Julie, and thanks for the very eloquent summary, probably better than I could have done, so thank you very much.